Picture yourself at a formal dinner party. Now, instead of sitting in a chair, you're asked to lie down on a couch for the entire meal. It sounds strange, doesn't it? Maybe a little uncomfortable. But for the elite of ancient Rome, this was the proper, civilized way to eat. The reasons why, however, have little to do with comfort, and they certainly weren't about laziness. The truth is far more revealing, cutting to the heart of what it meant to be Roman. So, why did they do it? First, let's get a few popular myths out of the way. The common image of Romans gorging themselves until they couldn't sit up is mostly a caricature. While their banquets could be stunningly extravagant, reclining wasn't about gluttony. Then there's the legend of the vomitorium, which many people think was a room for purging during a meal to make space for more. In reality, a vomitorium was just a passageway in a place like an amphitheater designed to vomit forth huge crowds of people. And while some have suggested there might be digestive benefits to lying on your left side, that probably wasn't the main reason for the custom either. If you asked an ancient Roman why they ate this way, they would likely give you a one-word answer: tradition. But that single word contains a fascinating story about power, status, and identity. To understand it, we need to look back to the people the Romans both admired and rivaled, the Greeks. The practice of dining while reclining wasn't a Roman invention. They adopted it, like so much of their high culture, from their neighbors. The custom seems to have begun in ancient Greece, sometime around the 7th century BCA. For the Greeks, the symposium, a drinking party that followed a meal, was a cornerstone of upper-class male society. Reclining on a couch, called a cline, was a posture of true leisure. It was a physical signal that you were not a laborer who had to eat quickly on a stool, nor a soldier who had to be ready for action. You were a free man, with time to spare and servants to attend to you. It was a clear, visible marker of freedom and wealth. When the Romans absorbed Greek culture, they saw this practice for exactly what it was: the ultimate status symbol. In a society as obsessed with hierarchy as Rome, adopting the reclining posture was a way to perform your elite status. The Roman banquet, or convivium, became a carefully staged piece of social theater. It wasn't just about what you ate. It was about how you ate. Sitting upright was for the poor, for children, and for slaves. People whose bodies were meant for labor. Reclining was for the master of the house and his honored guests. It was a public declaration that you had arrived. To really understand this, we need to step inside the Roman dining room, the triclinium. The name itself, from the Greek for 3 couches, tells the story. A wealthy Roman home would have at least one of these rooms, often decorated with lavish mosaics and frescoes. The layout was precise. 3 large couches were arranged in a U shape around a central table, leaving one side open so slaves could serve the food. This arrangement created the ideal setting for a dinner party of 9, with 3 diners per couch. But where you sat was anything but casual. Your position was a direct reflection of your social standing. The 3 couches were the lectus summus, high couch, lectus medius, middle couch, and lectus imus, low couch. The seat of honor, the most prestigious spot, was on the middle couch. The host himself would typically recline on the low couch, placing him near his most important guests while still allowing him to direct the evening. Less important guests were placed on the remaining couches. This seating chart reinforced the social hierarchy with every course. A guest knew their exact place in the pecking order just by seeing where they were told to lie down. The triclinium wasn't just a dining room. It was a map of Roman society in miniature. So how did they actually manage to eat this way? It might seem awkward, but the whole experience was designed around it. For one, Romans didn't use forks. They used spoons for liquids and their fingers for most solid foods. This wasn't rude. There was an etiquette to it. A polite Roman was taught to lift food with just the tips of their fingers to keep their hands clean. To make this work, all the food was pre-cut in the kitchen by slaves. Dishes were brought out on trays and served to the guests, who would be propped up on their left elbow, leaving their right hand free to eat. Slaves were constantly moving, not just serving food and refilling wine cups, which were always mixed with water, another Greek custom, but also bringing basins for hand washing and clearing scraps that guests might toss to the floor. The meal itself could last for hours. It started with appetizers, the gustatio, like eggs, olives, and salads. This was followed by the main courses, the mensae primae, which could feature an incredible variety of meats and fish. The meal ended with mensae secundae, a dessert of fruits and nuts. All the while, there was conversation, poetry, and music. The convivium was the social hub of elite Roman life, a place for networking and discussion, all conducted from the powerful, leisurely posture of reclining. But it's crucial to remember who we're talking about here. This image of a reclining Roman is an image of the 1%. The vast majority of people in the Roman world did not eat this way. For a common tradesperson or a farmer, meals were simple and eaten sitting on a bench or stool, just as they had been for centuries. The average apartment in Rome simply didn't have the space for a triclinium. Even within elite homes, there were rules. In the early Republic, respectable women were expected to sit upright in chairs, a clear sign of their subordinate status. This changed over time, and by the imperial era, elite women often did recline with the men. Children and slaves, however, always sat or stood. This very exclusivity was the point. Reclining wasn't a universal Roman custom. It was a privilege. It drew a line between the elite and the masses, men and women, the free and the enslaved. It was a physical performance of power, a luxury defined by the fact that most people couldn't share in it. So, why did it stop? Like the Roman Empire itself, the custom didn't disappear overnight. Its decline was a slow process, tied to huge social and cultural shifts. As the political and economic structures of the Western Empire crumbled, the hyper-formal lifestyles of the old aristocracy began to fade. At the same time, the rise of Christianity brought different social norms. Early Christian meals emphasized community and humility, ideas that stood in stark contrast to the hierarchical displays of the traditional Roman banquet. While the practice lingered for a time in the Eastern Roman Empire, in the West, the formal triclinium slowly gave way to dining halls with tables and chairs. It was a more practical arrangement that reflected a new social reality. The symbol had lost its power in a world that was rapidly changing. In the end, the ancient Romans who ate lying down did so not for comfort or because of gluttony. It was a conscious and powerful statement. It was a tradition borrowed from the Greeks to signal worldliness, a posture that declared freedom from labor, and a ritual that reinforced a rigid social order. To recline at a Roman banquet was to physically occupy a position of privilege. It separated the rich from the poor, the master from the slave, and for a long time, men from women. It tells us that for the Romans, a meal was never just a meal. It was a performance of status, a celebration of one's place in the world. And it's a fascinating reminder that sometimes the strangest of customs can tell us the most about a society's deepest values. If you enjoyed uncovering the hidden meanings behind the daily life of the Romans, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. We have many more journeys into the fascinating details of history coming soon. Thanks for watching.